At E3 2015, we saw a lot of major announcements from all the major players. But in between them, we also got gems that few noticed, including the game we're talking about today. Hey guys, Drak here, and today we're taking a look at the PlayStation exclusive Firewatch from Campo Santo Studios. With this being their first game as a company, they have a lot to prove to gamers. So the real question on our minds is, can Firewatch show what they're made of? So let's get to it. The game's story takes place mostly in Yellowstone Park, at the Two Forks Fire Tower in 1988, just before the biggest wildfire in history hit that very same area. You play Henry, who has had a hard time helping his wife with dementia and needing a break to think things through. He then meets his boss Delilah via walkie-talkie, and she helps him learn the ropes as well as work through his recent problems at home. Now, along the way, you have to deal with a series of odd events, from drunk college girls near your tower, to a strange person who appears to be stalking you throughout the summer. These all allow for the story to unfold gradually, and creates a suspense felt from beginning to end, as well as very much worth the thrill ride to go through. So in terms of visuals, I'll admit, it looks amazingly like The Witness, but that's not to say it's a knockoff. While the nature shots do look similar, there is a distinct change in the style in two ways. First being that The Witness tried to show all kinds of areas, while Firewatch is restricted to a specific region. Secondly is the fact that this game is more of a first-person game than The Witness. I mean, in that game you only saw a shadow of your character, whereas Firewatch has you interacting with the environment and thus helps with a visual element in either adding splendor or even danger to what you're seeing. Overall though, this game is visually stunning, and deserves to be held in the same account as games like The Witness in that regard. Firewatch is a first-person adventure game, so it plays similar to games like Monkey Island or The Wolf Among Us by Telltale, but from a first-person perspective. Now admittedly, there isn't a whole lot of gameplay to Firewatch, but with simplicity comes complexity, as the game keeps you engaged in things like walkie-talkie conversations instead of constantly throwing a puzzle your way. There is also a sense of progression, as you start out on the job with very little experience and tools, but as the story moves forward, more tools become available to you, like ropes to help rappel down cliffs and make travel easier, or a hatchet to cut through underbrush and open up paths for shortcuts. While most of the progression is based around travel, that's where it should be, as it does get difficult to go anywhere in the beginning. And by the end, you'll know your way around the Two Forks area really well, and will be wanting some shortcuts to move the story along. For most of the game, while the music is beautiful and sets the tone and place quite well, it is the dialogue that puts Firewatch over the top and sells the game's experience. As with most adventure games, the dialogue and story are what truly need to sell the game, either with a compelling story or with a Monkey Island or Sam & Max kind of humor. Firewatch does both, which is a hard thing to do for any adventure. Heck, I can only name a few titles from the titans of adventure games, LucasArts and Sierra, that did it and did it well. But somehow Firewatch found a way to keep the story interesting, as well as have a sense of humor, being that Henry is new on the job and doesn't know how to do a lot of it. Gee, it's almost like this should have been covered in an orientation or something. So I actually left an element out of the story for Firewatch, and the reason I did was because it added to the replayability of the game. Now, Firewatch does have a fixed beginning and endings, but in the middle is where you can shape Henry's story as the player. Each situation can be resolved in at least two ways, and each one shapes how you will discover the next situation in the game, which is a clear motivator to starting a new game and seeing what you discover if you went a different path, instead of, say, being the overall hero or jerk in the story. Now, I have already resolved to play this game a few times to discover new dialogue options, and even some secrets I didn't know were in the game until I saw some other playthroughs while writing my review of Firewatch. This is truly a budget title that can give you months of worthwhile storytelling and gameplay. So what else can I say on Firewatch that hasn't emphasized its presentation? While some elements like the music aren't its strongest point, the game doesn't suffer, as the story and gameplay will keep you engaged and not noticing the lack of music. Even if you get lost on your first few days, which you will, you aren't frustrated, as there is much more to explore for new dialogue options with Delilah, or new paths to find to get where you need to go. The game comes together as it should to provide a great experience for the player and an immersive world to explore. Firewatch was a gem to play. So much so that I had a difficult time keeping myself on schedule these days, just because I wanted to play more Firewatch. That's why this game gets a 9 out of 10 from me, and is a must-have PlayStation title for this year. And that's going to go ahead and do it for my review of Firewatch. If you like what I had to say, please toss a like on this video and leave a comment if there's something you'd like to add. Also, please consider subscribing to my channel, as I do plenty more content aside from reviews, like my Let's Plays, live streams, and my weekly podcast, Geek News. That's going to go ahead and do it for me. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you next time for the next review.